President Donald Trump's declaration that his administration will deploy the National Guard to Chicago whether the governor wants it or not has reignited one of the most contentious constitutional debates in modern U.S. politics, the balance of power between the federal government and the states. The statement, aimed directly at Illinois Governor JB Pritzker, marks a sharp escalation in the ongoing clash between Washington and Democratic state leaders over public safety, executive authority, and political control. For months, federal officials have expressed concern over the rising levels of violent crime in Chicago. Trump's administration has portrayed the city as a symbol of Democratic mismanagement, arguing that local leaders have failed to maintain order and protect citizens. The president's latest decision, framed as a necessary step to save lives and restore peace, follows a pattern of aggressive federal interventions that blur the line between civilian law enforcement and military authority. Governor Pritzker, however, has taken a firm stand against what he calls an unconstitutional act of federal overreach. He insists that the president lacks the authority to unilaterally deploy the National Guard within a state that has not requested assistance. In a televised address, Pritzker condemned the move as a dangerous abuse of power, accusing the Trump administration of trying to score political points rather than address the root causes of violence. "We don't need Washington's troops patrolling our neighborhoods," he said. "We need investment, opportunity, and respect for state sovereignty." The legal foundation for Trump's order likely rests on the Insurrection Act, an 1807 statute allowing the president to deploy federal forces in certain emergencies such as rebellion, insurrection, or when a state government cannot enforce the law. However, legal experts note that the act has rarely been invoked in non-insurrection contexts and remains politically explosive. Many argue that Chicago's situation, while serious, does not meet the legal threshold for such intervention. Constitutional scholars are divided. Supporters of Trump's decision claim the federal government has both a right and a duty to ensure public safety when states fail to act. Critics counter that unilateral action undermines the federalist structure, eroding the principles that give states control over local law enforcement. The issue could quickly escalate into a judicial showdown, testing the limits of presidential authority in domestic affairs. On the ground, reactions are mixed. Some Chicago residents, weary of rising gun violence, welcome federal assistance if it means safer streets. Others fear that a militarized response could inflame tensions, echoing past instances where heavy-handed policing sparked unrest. Civil rights groups have warned that deploying federalized troops without local cooperation risks turning neighborhoods into occupied zones. As prep. The escalating clash between President Donald Trump and Illinois Governor JB Pritzker over the National Guard deployment in Chicago has swiftly evolved from a state security dispute into a national political flashpoint. Beyond the question of legality, the confrontation underscores the widening divide between federal and state leadership, a divide increasingly defined by partisanship, ideology, and public perception. For President Trump, the move fits squarely within his long-standing law and order narrative. Throughout his political career, Trump has sought to project an image of strength, portraying himself as the defender of American cities against chaos, crime, and what he frequently describes as weak democratic leadership. By asserting that his administration would send troops to Chicago whether the governor wants it or not, Trump reinforces his image as a decisive leader unafraid of confrontation. His supporters view this as proof that he prioritizes safety over political correctness, appealing to voters frustrated with rising crime rates in major cities. However, the decision is not without political risk. Critics argue that Trump's actions represent executive overreach and a deliberate provocation designed to stir public emotion ahead of the election cycle. Many Democratic leaders have condemned the plan as unconstitutional and authoritarian, drawing parallels to the Nixon-era use of law and order rhetoric to suppress dissent. Governor Pritzker's defiance has turned him into a symbol of state resistance, with several Democratic governors and members of Congress rallying to his side. "This is not leadership, it's intimidation," said Speaker Nancy Pelosi, calling Trump's move a misuse of federal power for political theater. Within the National Guard itself, some unease has been reported. While the Guard operates under dual federal and state authority, the president's power to federalize troops removes them from local control, effectively transforming them into instruments of federal policy. Military analysts warn that using these troops in politically charged domestic missions risks undermining public trust and blurring the distinction between defense and policing. The political consequences extend beyond Illinois. Trump's firm stance has energized conservative states that share his emphasis on public safety, with governors like Greg Abbott of Texas and Ron DeSantis of Florida praising the move as a model of tough governance. On the other hand, liberal states fear it sets a dangerous precedent, one that could normalize federal intervention in local law enforcement, weakening the autonomy of states to govern their internal affairs. Public opinion remains sharply divided. Polls suggest that while a segment of Americans support the federal government's right to intervene in high-crime areas, an equally strong portion fears the erosion of civil liberties and state independence. In Chicago, the anxiety is palpable. Resident